Welcome to the Freedom Fridays Project podcast. I'm Pete Clark, your host, the Whispers Guy. It appears that work expands to the time that we give it, and I started to explore how I was investing my time and effort, particularly on Fridays. It's evolved to an exploration and experiment with time, energy, attention and identity, and a mindset shift from I have to I choose to. So if you're interested in exploring some changes to the way that you invest your time and your energy, if you'd like some tips on the way as you make some changes perhaps to your identity, if you would like the freedom of I choose to away from I have to, then this is the podcast for you. So welcome to the Freedom Fridays Project podcast. Welcome to this week's edition of the Freedom Fridays podcast, where I have a special guest, Neilan, with me today. So Anne, I've only known for probably a couple of years. We met on a development opportunity together. We probably kind of passed ships passing in the night and then connected actually post the program. And we've become connected in many different ways. So Anne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Pete. Great to be here.
Glad to have you. And I always start with the big question. In trying to give more life to our years, moving from something to something, kind of this I have to work to I choose to work. Mm-hmm. I've interviewed many people with big changes that they've made or are thinking of making. So let's start with that. What's the big change you have done or you're considering in making?
Okay. So in November 2018, I took a redundancy from corporate. So I had always worked in a corporate job, bit of a goody two-shoes, I think, coming from a middle class family where you worked, you went to university and you got a job and you worked and you worked hard for the man, if you like, and that had always been my mindset and my mentality, And in the lead up to that, actually, for about 6 months, I'd been really unhappy in corporate life, a bit sick of the politics. I was working on this project that I loved. The project was amazing. I'd learnt so much, but the corporate elements were just dragging me down. My kids were 8 and 10 at the time, and I kind of realised, I need to be around them more. They need me more now than they did when they were little. And so for 6 months, I'd been kind of thinking about how was I going to get out of corporate. I'd worked in digital marketing for a long time, but it didn't really feel that that's what I really wanted to be, or didn't want to be this old lady working in digital with all these young hip people. So I was trying to think about what was my next move, what did I do? And then this golden opportunity of redundancy landed on my lap. And so I thought, right, I've been looking for this. So decided to become my own boss, work for myself. My husband had been doing freelance. He'd been a stay-at-home parent, and we decided that we would make a go of building his business. So, so that was my kind of big, I guess, change from this mentality of I have to have a job, I have to work for someone, I have to be a good employee. Wow. To, well, no, I don't have to do any of those things, and I can choose to be my own boss. I've got some good knowledge and experience, and there's a different sector that I want to apply that knowledge and experience to. Okay. So I also decided, it used to really irritate me that on the 2nd of January every year I had to go to work because I only got 4 weeks of leave a year, and the kids were at school, and there's I don't know, 60 days a year when there's no school. And so I had the summer of fun. I didn't work that summer, and then just started to kind of look at what we did next after that. Cool. Yeah.
I'm going to pick up a little bit later on what you did next. I'm interested in the catalyst, because what you've described, to go from working for the proverbial man, to pay the tax man, et cetera, to working for yourself in whatever circumstance, it seems like an aspiration or dream for many people. I want to run my own business. not even thinking that they are the business themselves, but, have an ABN, directorship, I'm the CEO of my own business, which always makes me smile a little bit. You said you were unhappy for 6 months prior. Up to that point, were there any whispers that gave you a bit of were there any weak signals you can go, oh, something's not quite right?
I was just really unhappy. I was really stressed. I wasn't enjoying going to work. I'd always liked my job. I'd always liked what I did. I always got fulfillment. I got fulfillment from going to work and working with people. And I never wanted to be a stay-at-home mum. Right. Oh, sorry, I thought I did. And then when I had kids, I was like, actually, I'm not a Play-Doh and finger paints kind of person. And so a lot of my identity was wrapped up in being good at what I did. And, I was the classic overachiever. I did well at school, I did well at university, and I did well at work. And in the last 6 months of my being there, I was working on this project, but I didn't feel like I was doing well anymore. And so that starts to really question my identity of, if I'm not good at this, what the hell am I good at, kind of thing. So that were probably some of those whispers. And the big catalyst too was my kids. I just kind of realized that, because I was working for a company that was headquartered in Europe. And so I would go to work for 8 hours, and then I'd come home and I'd get on calls for another 2 or 3 hours. My kids are like, why are you always on calls? We never see you. You don't put us to bed. And they're like, they were 8 and 10. And so they were becoming aware. And my daughter is quite shy. And I just went, I actually need to be present for them. I also kind of realized that we're at this kind of turning point in their lives where I wanted to know who their friends were. I wanted to be a part of their lives. I wanted to just know who they were hanging out with. Like, I don't want to be their best friend, but I could just see we were going to be going into these teenage years, and the potential for it all going a bit wrong was high because I was just not present. Interesting. So that was kind of really one of my big motivators, was to make sure that we were set up for our kids' teenage years from an emotional well-being point of view.
Can I pick up on that? Because I'm interested. I fully respect the finger painting type of mum at the time, which I think some mums struggle with not being, and some mums struggle with different stages, as my wife did. What was the catalyst for you to think that the teenage years were really important versus the earlier years? So
I think in the earlier years, their physical needs are more important. Okay. Like, they've got to be fed and clothed, and sounds terrible, but kind of anyone can do that. Sure, they need your emotional needs, but, I never had any problem sending my kids to daycare. It was interesting. So when my son was 7 months old, I finished, I've always had this kind of little dream in the back of my head to be a consultant. And back in 2007, I left my job, corporate job, went and got married, and was going to start my own consulting business in analytics. And I fell pregnant very quickly. And so I went, okay, what do we do now? So my husband worked full-time in an agency. We do similar sort of work. I had our baby. I had a really nice, easy first pregnancy. I worked part-time. It was very nice. And then our son was born in 2008. And so when he was 7 months old, we were in the middle of the GFC, and my husband was working for a marketing agency, and they said, oh, we need you to go part-time because our work's cut back. And so we were like, shit, what do we do? I was about to go looking for part-time work, and he would have probably gone look for a full-time job. And we said, well, why don't you take part-time work, stay at home with our son, and I'll go and get a full-time job. And once I started going to interviews, I went, oh my God, this is what I need to do. I actually need to be at work. I need to be with adults and So, it's really interesting. It's come full circle.
Yeah.
So back then in 2009, I went and got a full-time job, and I loved it and I thrived, and it was great because my son has this awesome relationship and both my kids have this awesome relationship with my husband because he brought them up at the beginning when they were little. And so anyway, coming back to your original question. So I feel like I kind of realize when they're little, there's lots of people who are in their lives who can fulfill their needs.
Mm-hmm.
When they get to 8 and 10, and, when I see what other people's teenagers have gone through, the things you read about in the media, I just feel like you need, as a parent, you need to be present, and we can't just turn up when they're 13 or 14 and go, hey, I'm here to be your parent. You kind of got to set that relationship and trust from when they're 8 or 10, and we've seen the rewards of that. That was 2 years ago. So my daughter was 8. She used to hate getting into trouble, so she wouldn't tell us stuff.
But like a goody two shoes.
She's a goody two shoes. She's so much like me. And so now when she does something wrong, she comes and she'll say, oh, I need to tell you something. And I go, thank God I've spent the last 2 years at home.
Yeah, the power of that's amazing.
It is. Because I go, okay, it's kind of when we were doing that course, at one point we got to say, what are your goals for the next 5 years? And I would say to my accountability group, I remember this clearly on one call, I went, my goals for the next 5 years are to get my 2 kids to 18 in one piece. Yeah.
Great goal.
And that's it. So going from being this corporate, I was never a high flyer, but a corporate achiever, defined by my job, to this little unit of 4 people here. Yeah. That's my goal at the moment, and my job is to get these new humans out of my responsibility in a healthy and safe way. Yeah,
that's our deeper legacy, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And do you mind if I ask you about the working mum thing? Because I know it's a bit of a title that gets used for, any mum who works, and there's different definitions. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I'm interested in the shift that you made, early years versus the teenage years. When you look back, is there any sense of guilt or regret, or have you been able to just let that go and focus on the future?
It's interesting. I kind of wore that working mum badge as a bit of a badge of honor. It's like, I work full time. I remember going to kindergarten. I work full time. And I look back now, I go, God, I was a poser. I think it was trying to be just be a bit different. I'm a bit different. So that, on reflection, that's an interesting thing for me. Yeah. I never had guilt really about going to work because it made me a better mother. Because I didn't resent being here. I didn't resent them. I had my life. Like, I've always been very clear that I am me as a person, and I'm there, yes, they're my kids, but they don't define me.
Wow. I've got a little bit of goosebumps there as you said that. I have, seriously. Just that connection, because I think our experiences are unique, whether we agree or not. And, terms like working mother allow us to have a conversation about it. But deep beneath that, it's your own construct of that. And to hear you say, maybe not consciously, but on reflection, that working full time made you a better mother, I think a lot of people will be relieved to hear that that's okay.
Well, that was my experience. Like, I didn't want to be finger painting, and I'm still friends with the people who were in my mother's group. We met, my eldest has just turned 13, and I'm still in contact. We don't see each other a lot. I was the first one to go back to work, and I went back full time.
This is true.
Okay, she was here and now she's gone. Yeah. But I don't know, maybe because I was an older, like I didn't have my kids until I was in my mid 30s.
Yeah.
And I'd had and my husband's 4 years older than me, and I'd had this whole kind of life, and I didn't give that up, if you like. And I did want kids, but I don't know, maybe I'm a bit, not selfish, but I just knew I couldn't kind of lose who I am as a person. Yeah, and I definitely was a better mother by going to work.
Can you share any why, any reasons you think that's the case?
I think part of it is my sense of, it comes back to that sense of achievement.
Right.
At the time, my sense of achievement was wrapped up in having a good job and doing well at work and, working for big companies. I worked for big, well-known companies, being able to say, I worked for this company and this company and this company. There was a bit of ego in there. There's probably a bit of, I grew up in the western suburbs of Penrith. There's probably a bit of a, Western Sydney girl makes good kind of element to it. I don't know. There's all sorts of probably complex psychology, according to me. Yes. Just to, not escaped, because my family, and I'm probably more proud of my heritage now than I've ever been. But there's a lot of you want to escape that kind of stigma of being from the West. And so there's probably an element of that. I've made it. I've got a good career. I'm not the stereotype of where I came from.
Yeah, I feel a little sense of that. I grew up in Scotland, as you know, in a pretty working class average household.
Yeah.
And I guess it's only in comparison, because I had no idea what life was really like. And there's a little bit of drive in me that kind of fuels my fire around, poor boy done good. But it's interesting, the good might be seen materially by others, whereas more and more over the years, it's been, for me, more about being a better human.
Yeah, and I think I've now, probably that's where I am a bit too now. It's like, it doesn't matter where I live or where I came from or the clothes I wear. Like, that's never, the material has never really driven me. Like, money has never driven me. But at me, it's about the, am I a good person? Am I bringing up good people? Am I making a contribution to the society that I live in?
And so does that now give you as much sense of achievement, and is the achievement the fulfillment part, than the corporate job did before?
I don't know, and that's probably where I'm at a bit of a crossroads again now, is trying to think about, well, what does give me fulfillment? I kind of wish if I could be paid to read a book, my life would be complete. I'm 2.5 years into running our business. Financially, we've got a bit of way to go for it to be successful. We've still got that was always my big fear, making that decision to leave corporate, was far out. Will we still have a roof over our head? And I know we always will, because I always go and live with my parents. I'd rather not do that at my age with my 2 children, but worst comes to worst.
Your parents are probably saying the same thing.
Oh, well, my sister's living with them at the moment, so it's a bit busy. Anyway, 2.5 years in, I've realised, okay, well, the money always comes. The contract job turns up when you need it to, or in COVID, the government steps in and helps you out, and we're still here 2.5 years later. So I'm at this point where I'm going, wow, what does give me fulfillment and purpose? I feel like I'm trundling along a bit at the moment. And that's part of it's COVID related. I was the president of the local USH, which is the after school care, and I stopped doing that. That was a volunteer position. I'm on the netball club committee, which is fine, but I don't know. I don't feel like I have to change the world. I just have this kind of nice, normal life. Like I'm always about no drama.
Okay.
Like if I have a life with no drama, I'm happy. I'm very happy being average, and just, it's when you said, talk about people ordinary doing extraordinary. I'm like, I don't do anything extraordinary. I'm very happy just being happy, you know.
Well, that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And the reason this has become interesting for me is a bit of a backstory. A good friend of mine is an Olympian.
Mm-hmm.
He showed me some slides that Michael Johnson shared for the Australian Institute of Sport. And this was a few years ago now. Yep. And it was, here's Michael Johnson's tips for being successful. Set some goals, work hard, win, learn, change. Right? Very, very common bullet points, tips, strategy. Yep. But because it's Michael Johnson, you know, he's lived it and breathed it, we can go, well, it must be true then.
Yeah.
And what I've discovered in chatting to normal-ish people like you and I is that we've all got that story too. Mm. And it's just that the interesting thing about our comparison with Michael Johnson is, well, it's only Pete and Anne. Mm. But we're doing extraordinary things in a sense of within our lives.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. And it's often that comparison with other people.
And that's the big, I think, shift in me in the last 2.5 years.
So, sorry, Anne, I've just got a little dog who's come to play.
I can see
you. Get out, mate. They never usually come into you. That's funny.
I saw him walk behind you.
Yeah, he's a very cuddly dog. He's always putting when they put their face on your lap and, you know, they reach up with their paw. He's always doing that, which is quite loving.
Well, yeah, I think that's been the big shift in me in the last 2.5 years is I don't worry about things. Like I used to worry all the time about what do people think or, you know, where's the money going to come from
wow. How have you done that without going through years of therapy?
I don't know. I live on the edge of the bush. I do a lot of walking.
Not that bad an idea. You know, if you're feeling I read recently, if you're feeling a bit meh inside, get outside.
Yeah. And I'm looking out now onto trees. Like we live in a beautiful place. Right. So lucky. I don't know. I've done a few courses.
Yep.
I'm now friends with people like you and other people who I've met through these courses. I'm just like my circle is different. I think I'm friends with entrepreneurs. I've done courses about entrepreneurship, and you know that because I was always so petrified of failure. God, I was that classic type A personality from school all the way through. I just don't fail. I don't do failure. And so, you know, business is all about regular failure.
Yeah.
And just picking yourself up. And so having to do that on repeat and getting to the end and go, well, my kids are still okay. And we've still got a roof over our head.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what people think. It's taken me a long time to be okay with that. So I think like that's the thing. I don't know. I can't remember what the question was, but
that's okay. And I'm wondering if there's a connection in my head, and I'm wondering if there's one in your head. You started by saying that shift you made was partly down to how you saw yourself. You shifted identity, and you now surround yourself with different people. And you know, if we accept there's some science, but probably more art around, you become like the 4 or 5 people you surround yourself with the most.
Yeah.
Is there a connection there for you in your next iteration? Is something to do with identity and surrounding yourself with different people?
Maybe. Yes, probably. And that I'm a planner, but I kind of let things happen. Like I don't feel like my life has ever been hugely planned out. You know, especially my career. So I went to uni. I did actuarial for a year, hated it. Saw this ad for the television ratings a job to do the television ratings in the newspaper back when job ads were in the newspaper, and went, oh, that looks interesting. That seems like me. I look at the TV ratings in the newspaper every week. I'm going to apply for that job. Got that job and went, okay, did that for 2 years. then went overseas, came back, wasn't settled, went overseas again, I lived in Ireland for 3 years. I met my husband when I worked there. So my life has just followed this meandering path.
Right.
And I kind of have finally gotten to the stage where I go, that's okay. Like I'll just wait and see what the next thing kind of comes at me.
So you're more at peace, more contented?
Yeah. I mean, I know that I feel like I'm having this little bit of downtime now, having a little bit of a lull to go, okay, I kind of know what I want to do next. I want to help small businesses with systems and process, particularly in the area of marketing, because there's so much behind the scenes stuff that they struggle with. I've probably still got a bit of imposter. Like when you asked me that question about the people you surround yourself with, that just made me feel a little bit icky, because I'm like, oh, I know I need to surround myself with successful people, but I feel like an imposter in that group. So I don't even know how to go and find them and be friends with them.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's plenty of us in that group, Anne.
So, I just kind of, the whole thing, I didn't like corporate. And then I got this lovely opportunity of redundancy. Yeah. And
would you have done it without that?
I don't think I would have. I think I needed that push. I needed that financial security blanket.
Right. Yeah.
Because the thing that had been the blocker for me was, how am I going to pay for this? How are we going to support ourselves? And so to get a nice lump sum, I went, okay, well, that answers that question.
And yet you said earlier on that your philosophy now is that the money usually comes.
And that's what
usually are okay. You didn't feel like that then?
No way.
Interesting.
No. The last 2.5 years have taught me, that's probably been one of the biggest lessons in the last 2.5 years for me. Is that financially we will be okay.
If anyone's listening and they're thinking about making that sort of change, with or without the redundancy, I know it's your own experience, but sometimes that can be instructive. Do you have any thoughts about, do this, don't do that, or here's what I did, here's what I didn't do that might be helpful for people?
Nothing is permanent. So that's kind of, I see some friends, I've got quite a few friends still in corporate, and I see how unhappy they are. And I don't say to them, just quit, because I know it took a massive boot in my back.
Yeah.
So, there's this thing, leap and the net will appear. But my own experience was I needed a big catalyst. And I think that's true of most people. I think that's a decision that sometimes it is better when it's taken out of your hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but I think if you do make that choice, then have some kind of support structure ready to go. So for example, because I took redundancy, I had outplacement support. And so, and because I walked into the first meeting with them and I went, they're like, are you okay? This was straight after I'd, had the letter. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, okay. And I said, and I want to start my own business. And they said, we'll partner you with an expert in that. And so I had this small business expert as my outplacement support person, which is amazing. So I think it's, don't just jump because it's crap. Have a bit of a plan, sign up for a course or go and see an outplacement person, a career coach or guide or a small, find some, like I always thought I had to do, and part of that overachiever was I had to do everything myself. I had to be the best at everything.
Yeah.
So, that's probably my second biggest learning is like, just lean on people. Ask for help. I've always been quite good at asking for help.
Be an overachiever at leaning on others.
Yes. That's a great way of putting it. I decided very early with my children that I wouldn't try and be the hero mum, that, it takes a village, and that I'm okay to ask people, can you pick my kid up? Can you give them a lift? Can you, just always, I'm more than happy to ask people for help. because I think a lot of people don't like to ask for help because there's this whole obligation. So I kind of feel like, right, if I ask for help first, then they might ask me for help back because they can see that it's okay. So I did that with my parenting, but I didn't ever do it in my corporate because I just saw it as this sign of weakness. And
I hear of it all the time, man. Somebody has a quality or an attribute that shows up at home but not at work, or in one relationship but not in another relationship, or in one project but not in another project. And part of my job is to help them understand what's the recipe for doing it well in that context, because you've got the ingredients.
Yes.
Then how do you transfer it into a different context? Do you know when you picked up the belief that asking for help's okay?
No, I think it's just this kind of combination of the last 2.5 years of successive failures, things not going to plan. And it's like, well, I can't do it all anymore. I'm never going to be good at all of this stuff of running a business. So I need to, and it's just the mental load too. I also, this might be a bit of ego, but I'm kind of trying to demonstrate to my friends and people that I know that it's okay to just go, you know what, that was really crap and that was shit and I struggled with that.
And that's okay.
And it's okay. Like I'm part of trying to lead, I guess I'm trying to lead by example. I'm thinking out loud now, it's only just really hit me. I'm trying to lead by example to my friends and my, the people I know, that it's okay to vocalize stuff and that it's okay for things to be a bit crappy and to not try and just be perfect all the time. Because I do have quite a few friends that are just still trying to be like that. And it's like, God, that's exhausting.
Yeah. I wish I could remember the word, but there's a guy, I think he's John Koenig, I think, or something, and he's put together these words that are an expression of our unexpressed feelings. So you might have heard of the word sonder, S-O-N-D-E-R. And the definition of that is everyone you meet has got as exciting and as a boring life as you. We're all the same in that sense. What I've heard you say, my interpretation of that is, and I think he's put a word together for that, is that, more often, and maybe because of the society we live in, there's so many people that have got this mask on, and what sits inside is different. And what I'm hearing you saying is what sits inside is coming more and more to the surface. And so they're becoming closer and closer together. So there's less effort required to keep up appearances. There's less effort required to keep up with the Joneses. So there's a stillness, there's a contentment, there's a coherence between the different versions of ourselves that sit within and what shows up on the outside. And that's what you're trying to role model for people.
I am. And, I live in quite, a affluent part of Sydney, northwest Sydney, and it's all the, there's a lot of BMWs and a lot of Audis, and people go to they just go to the supermarket and they have to be, don't leave the house without their makeup on. I don't ever wear makeup. I might wear it when I'm, might do it for a little video or whatever. But, I feel different to the people that I'm friends with and live around here. Maybe because of where I grew up, I don't really know, but I was uncomfortable with that. We've lived here for 10 years in this part of Sydney now, and I have some great friends here, but I'm very different to them because I'm at that point where I go, well, I'm not going to put makeup on just to go to Woolworths. Sorry. And this is who I am. I'm probably just getting more comfortable in my own skin, and it was getting out of the corporate, having all these successive failures, which are fine, that have made me realize, it's okay. It's okay. I'm still the same person. Like I'm doing another course at the moment where one of the big lessons is to distance yourself. Like your business stuff is not who you are. And it's a work in progress, right? But that took a long time.
I read recently that Ash Barty, who you probably would know, the work that she did with her coach, her site coach, was predominantly about that. About who she was beyond playing tennis. So tennis is what she does, but who she is is different but synergistic and compatible. But if who she is just a tennis player, that's quite limited.
That has really inspired me. I read all that stuff too after she won Wimbledon and the interviews with him. And I think I even wrote down, you know, his kind of three things. It's like, it's okay to say what your goals are.
Yeah.
And it's okay to not achieve them.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's like, that was massive for me to read that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I remember, you know, my first entry into the personal development field. I can't remember who said it, but it's the principle. And, you know, have you been to uni, haven't you, or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, the uni certificate that we get, you got this degree and blah, 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 blah. How often do we use it?
Never. I have an economics degree.
Right.
I got to the end
maybe.
when
usually never.
Well, I got to the end of mine when I don't want to be an economist.
That's right. So
what the hell am I going to do with this economics degree?
It's not the achievement of the goal. It's not the piece of paper that's valuable. It's the experience that gets us there. And so that's what I think he's referring to. You know, set wildly ambitious goals, and that's okay if you don't hit it. But what you've got to do to move along towards that is what makes you and helps you discover who you are in this part of your life.
Yes.
Because I think that can change. Who I am is a deeply personal and probably dynamic answer.
Have you read Ronnie Khan's biography? So she's the lady who founded
Oz Harvest?
Yes. And her biography is amazing.
Okay.
So she's South African.
Yep.
And moved to Australia, high-flying corporate. Oh, well, no, she had like a big catering company, and you know, one day had catered for a function and had all this leftover food and was driving home and was like, this isn't right. Dropped it off at a charity. And, you know, she's redefined herself.
She has.
In her late 50s, early 60s. She's found her calling at that time of her life. And I was just so inspired by, like, I don't know what my contribution is going to be, but it gives you, I was just so inspired that you can totally change your life and the direction that you're on and the contribution that you make.
And I think that's a perfect place to pause. Thank you so much for sharing lots of you in this. I'm going to finish, as I do, with, you know, 2 or 3 random binary questions, if you'd be happy to answer and go with the flow here. So are you more sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Okay. The last movie you cried at?
Oh, God. I cry in nearly every movie I watch.
Yeah, me too.
I can't remember. We watched, did I cry? The kids laugh at me every time.
Yeah, me and my youngest daughter are the same, and I'll just laugh at her. So what was it?
It might have been Rams. It's got Sam Neill, and is it Sam Neill? And who's the other? Michael Caton. These warring brothers on a sheep farm.
Right. Okay. One word that describes you.
Happy.
Cool. What profession would you try if you could?
Would it be teaching or nursing?
Okay. What's a maxim you live by?
It always works itself out.
Cool. And my last question was going to be a book that's changed your life, but I think we know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's the Ronnie Khan.
That's cool.
I love
thank you so much. It's been a pleasure chatting, and it's been I've 2 or 3 occasions of goosebumps on this one because of the stuff you've been saying. So thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
All right.
All right.
Cheers, Anne.
Take care. Talk
Bye.
soon. Bye.